What if Anakin convinced Obi-Wan that the Jedi were evil on Mustafar? Let's explore the depths of it in the video.
Stop! Stop now! Come back! I love you!
Liar!
Anakin's eyes widen as he spots Obi-Wan descending Padme's ship. A spark of betrayal crosses his face, followed by anger as his mind thinks of all the possibilities. He turns to Padme and feels the Force urging him to lash out and strike them. But as he stares at their faces, his anger fades, and he instantly feels ashamed. Padme, his wife, and the mother of his children, the children she's carrying right now, how could he possibly hurt her? Obi-Wan doesn't say anything, but his hand drifts towards his lightsaber. Anakin does the same, but hesitates. While he is confident that he can beat his former master, the idea of crossing blades with him fills him with dread. Obi-Wan is his oldest friend, and the man who trained him. Instead, Anakin draws himself up proudly, ready to fight, but moves his hand away from his weapon.
You shouldn't have come here, Master. I am on a mission by the Chancellor.
I know what sort of mission he's sending you on, and where that path leads. Don't do this, Anakin.
I have to. I have to right the wrongs in the galaxy caused by the Jedi.
The Jedi are not responsible for this war.
Aren't they? Dooku was a Jedi before he fell. He grew tired of their failures, and how they served a corrupted republic. They betrayed Ahsoka, too. They turned their back on justice long ago.
The faintest flicker of doubt crosses Obi-Wan's face. His fingers flick away from his weapon. He recalls the failures of the Jedi Council all too well. He was there. He saw them himself and tried to fight them. Anakin notices this too and tries to press his advantage.
And what about Qui-Gon? He wanted to take me in, to have me serve the Jedi, but they were prepared to turn me away because of their foolish Jedi code. When they let me in, they never trusted me or saw me as an equal.
Anakin.
His voice trails off, and he thinks of that fateful day. How scared Anakin was, and how much his master wished to care for him. He looks at Anakin now. He did not ever expect to forgive Anakin, and was ready to cut him down when he arrived. But now Obi-Wan hesitates, as he looks into his student's eyes, and sees the good in him. Just as Padme says, Obi-Wan begins to see things from Anakin's perspective, and takes a deep breath.
You are correct. You were wronged, and the Jedi Order made mistakes. More than a few. But you murdered children. If the Chancellor is willing to order this, then he is evil. You must see that.
I don't trust him. Palpatine is wrong. I know this. But it isn't the Jedi who can take him down. It can be me. I can end his empire before it begins, and I can build something better.
You? What knowledge do you have in ruling an empire? In running the Senate or managing the military?
I know. I'm still working on it. But I could use some help.
Instead of drawing his lightsaber, Anakin holds out his hand, inviting him to join him. Obi-Wan can only stare at Anakin in surprise, but he sees the earnestness in his eyes, the same passion and dedication that carried him as a Jedi. Slowly, Obi-Wan reaches out and takes it. The two former friends embrace, and for a moment, things seem right. However, as things calm down, they realize a problem in their plan, and that is that Palpatine will never accept Obi-Wan in his inner circle. This means they must work in secret, bide their time, and build their rebellion. The first thing Anakin requires is Obi-Wan's lightsaber. When Anakin returns to Coruscant, he offers this as a trophy to Palpatine and proof of his victory. The Emperor is pleased with this and welcomes Anakin as his apprentice. True to his word, he begins to teach Anakin the ways of the dark side. The two spend many months in hard training, using the Jedi Temple as their new training ground. The gesture was intentionally made by Palpatine as a mockery of the former Jedi Order. While Anakin accepts it in silence, he feels a sense of uncertainty about what he's doing. The halls of the temple serve as a reminder of his deeds. The training only highlights the contrast between Palpatine and Obi-Wan. While stern and sometimes sarcastic, Obi-Wan cared for Anakin, constantly looking after his well-being, encouraging him, and making him feel better when he struggled. Meanwhile, Palpatine is only concerned with getting the results he wishes. He regularly pushes Anakin to his limits, berating him if he fails to meet his standards, and mocking him for his failures. All of this, he claims, is to help Anakin channel his emotions. But the lessons don't stop in the temple grounds. He also has Anakin accompany him during Senate sessions and other important diplomatic meetings. Palpatine doesn't just see Anakin as his apprentice, he also views him as a potential heir to his empire. While he's surprised to see Padme survived, Anakin assures him that he can control her and she is allowed to remain a senator, though is largely sidelined due to her faction being much reduced after the Clone Wars. With this new power comes privileges, such as sharing the income of the Empire and being placed in charge of some of the budget. Anakin has some of his money funneled to Obi-Wan, who is hiding out in the Outer Rim. He is tasked with helping keep Anakin and Padme's children as far away from the Empire as possible, but also to right the wrongs made by the Jedi and Republic. Among these is ending slavery. With this money, Obi-Wan begins to buy slaves from their masters. Some of these slaves are sent to friendly worlds like Naboo or Alderaan, where they may help the economy, while others are invited to fight for their cause. These slaves are trained by Obi-Wan in tactics and combat, so that they can defend themselves and fight against their masters. When the money grows short, or slaves prove uncooperative, this small army of freedmen proves valuable, as their training and expertise allow them to raid slave markets, liberate prisoners, and punish slavers. The group finds an unexpected ally in Captain Rex, who is in the process of leading his rebellion. This one focused on clones, as the Empire begins to question maintaining these expensive clones in a time of peace. Although few, the clones are veteran soldiers, and they help train Obi-Wan's growing slave army in squad tactics, and help turn them into effective soldiers. This also becomes Anakin's first chance to flex his political muscles, as he speaks openly about helping the clones and giving them a fair deal after years of service. This aligns him with Padme and Chuchi. But while his support is a big help, it does not stop Palpatine from proceeding with his plans to begin creating a conscript army that will replace the clones. This does prove to Anakin beyond a shadow of a doubt that Palpatine cannot be trusted. When he's not involved in politics, Anakin is now sent to act as the Empire's enforcer and put his training to good use. With many CIS holdouts and rebels still active, Anakin is tasked with putting them down. But this provides him an opportunity to get in touch with Obi-Wan. The two meet on isolated moons or desolate planets in the Outer Rim, trading reports and information about the Empire or simply catching up. The time apart makes them realize how much they miss each other's company. More importantly, it allows Anakin to spend some time with his children, whom Obi-Wan raises telling stories of the great Anakin Skywalker. This also allows them to coordinate his efforts as Anakin carries out his orders, partially at least. He does indeed take out threats to the Empire, but he makes sure that Obi-Wan benefits from it. Sometimes he targets organizations that are rivals to Obi-Wan's faction, or sends information about them to his friend. They agree that Obi-Wan must continue to operate in secrecy, so for the next few years, the two slowly build up a force as the Jedi connect with rebel cells across the galaxy, creating a web of allies with Anakin's funding. Corruption is hardly anything new in the Empire, so Anakin's efforts largely go unnoticed within the bureaucracy, especially when he's been having so much success dealing with the rebels. Meanwhile, Anakin begins to win the loyalty of his men and tries to turn them away from the Empire. He gives them lavish gifts and promises of wealth and lands to ensure their loyalty, turning them into his men instead of the Empire's. But while the government remains ignorant of what Anakin's doing, Palpatine is not so easily fooled. He slowly begins to catch on that something is not right. He understands the nature of the Sith, and that Anakin will try to threaten him, so he begins to undermine his efforts. He soon redeploys Anakin's forces and gives him a new job: to hunt down the remnants of Darth Maul's forces, knowing this will both take him far away and deplete his forces. Palpatine is correct in this effort, as the war against the Crimson Dawn and other criminal syndicates is not anything the 501st is used to. Instead of battles and sieges, the underworld fights something closer to a guerrilla war, where raiding is more common and the soldiers attack supply ships or ambush their marching columns. When they do engage in battle, these are fast-moving hit-and-run attacks against the 501st. Apo reports heavy losses in many of their battles, while supplies and reinforcements are in short supply, leaving no doubt in Anakin's mind that Palpatine intends for Anakin to fail. This only makes him more determined to succeed, fighting across different systems and capturing strongholds one by one. Although there is some success, it is like trying to smash the sea. The campaign soon takes its toll on his men as the Legion suffer heavy losses that cannot be easily replaced. In desperation, Anakin contacts Obi-Wan for help, and his rebel forces soon join the fight. Their soldiers are much more experienced in irregular warfare than the criminals are pushing them to. These fast-moving troops manage to begin to whittle down the criminal forces, allowing for conventional troops to move in for the kill. The cooperation allows them to drive the criminals back to their stronghold where Maul is holed up with his remaining forces. The Dathomir stronghold looms before them, a decayed fortress of rusted metal and ancient stone. Their forces soon encircle them, and while the rebels clear out the last of the criminals hiding in the jungles, the 501st batter down the walls with artillery. Anakin is the first through the breach, his lightsaber in hand, with Obi-Wan by his side. Their soldiers rush after them, firing at the criminals while they are only interested in one target, Darth Maul.
So, the two lost Jedi reunite to face me, the puppet of the Sith and the failed apprentice. Did your master ask you to play nicely with each other?
You're outnumbered, Maul. Surrender, and maybe we'll show mercy.
Mercy? From you, Skywalker. You've slaughtered my men, torn apart my empire, and you've just proven yourself a hypocrite for whatever ideals the Jedi stand for.
The Jedi are dead.
Oh, so the dark side has finally broken you. Well then, I am content to die here. My life is complete.
With a roar, Maul leaps at him with his double-bladed lightsaber. Anakin dodges the initial blow and blocks the follow-up swing. Their crimson lightsabers send sparks flying. Obi-Wan reaches for his electro staff and aims at Maul's legs, but the Night Brother leaps back, allowing Anakin to press him. As he fights, he lets the dark energy flow through him as their blades clash. Anakin meets each savage swing with one of his own, advancing slowly and stonewalling Maul's violent swings. Obi-Wan steps in from the side, twirling his staff and catching Maul's lightsaber. He twists it aside and allows Anakin to stab at his side. When Maul tries to counter, Obi-Wan unleashes a rapid series of strikes aimed at Maul's center. Maul spins his saber staff, blocking each blow before swinging low to unbalance him. Obi-Wan leaps over the strike, landing gracefully and pressing his attack. Anakin advances and rams his shoulder against Maul. He throws himself at him, putting his full strength behind the attack and knocking him back. Obi-Wan follows up by stabbing his staff in his legs. The electricity sends sparks up his robotic limbs and leaves him temporarily paralyzed. With him stumbling aside, Anakin takes the opportunity to rush forward, swinging his lightsaber at him. Maul barely blocks the attack, but Obi-Wan leaps up and kicks him to the ground. He reaches for his staff and holds it against his chest, sharing a glance towards Anakin, who drives his lightsaber into his torso. However, as they celebrate their victory, little do they know that Captain Ozzel, one of the few soldiers sent to reinforce Anakin, is a spy sent by Palpatine to secretly monitor their activity to the Empire. In particular, he emphasizes how Anakin is secretly working with rebels. It doesn't take long for reports from Padme saying that an Imperial fleet is gathering its forces and preparing to depart from Coruscant. Worse still, this fleet includes Emperor Palpatine himself, leaving no doubt who he is targeting. Anakin immediately realizes something is wrong.
Obi-Wan, you must gather your forces and leave immediately. I can't guarantee your protection.
Anakin, there's a golden opportunity here. Perhaps it is time to make our stand and challenge Palpatine here.
Not now, and not when we're so unprepared. Leave. Hurry. Build up your forces. I'll try to buy you as much time as I can.
Obi-Wan opens his mouth to protest, but can't argue with his logic, and his rebels quickly depart. But Anakin doesn't wait for Palpatine to arrive. He sends out a few of his ships to harass the nearby star systems loyal to rival criminal gangs like the Hutts. With Maul defeated, he makes it seem that his next targets are the other criminal syndicates. After he hits their smuggler dens and warehouses, the response comes soon as the Hutts raise their forces and harass the oncoming Imperial fleet in retaliation. They launch the same hit-and-run attacks that plagued Anakin and his forces, but these fresh Imperial troops lack the experience to deal with them. This causes some delays, but Palpatine has them ignore these attacks and avoid retaliation, as his target is Anakin and his troops. They form up in one of the bases to confront Palpatine just as their ships emerge from hyperspace. Anakin sends the few ships he has, mostly smaller light cruisers and frigates, as he is distrustful of many of the Star Destroyers. Meanwhile, he organizes his Imperial forces to contest their landing. Unfortunately, the battle in space was one-sided, as Ozzel and most of the fleet defected without a fight. Those few ships that attempted to resist are wiped out. Seeing the Imperial ships approaching, Anakin has no choice but to surrender. As his soldiers lay down their weapons, Palpatine steps out from his shuttle and approaches them.
So, my young apprentice, this is the mighty General Skywalker. This is the man I entrusted to carry out my will. And what do I find? Defeat, betrayal, failure. You kept Kenobi alive. You played your little games with the Hutts, thinking you could use them to undermine me. I expected more from my apprentice, but in the end, you are lacking.
So where are the rest of your ships?
Silence!
He unleashes a burst of lightning from his fingers and strikes Anakin across the chest. Though he crumples to the ground, Anakin remains resistant. Around him, his men prepare to move forward, but Palpatine silences them with a look.
You have caused me a bit of chaos, though. The Hutts wage war on our borders, bleeding resources meant for the Empire. The rebels slip through our grasp. I admit, you have some cunning, but you are no match for me.
If I've failed you, then do what you must. I'm ready to accept my fate.
Oh, my dear boy. Do you think I intend to grant you the mercy of death? A simple execution? No. I intend to make a show of it.
The Emperor raises his hands, lightning crackling between his fingers. With a sharp motion, the bolts of pure agony strike Anakin in the chest, sending him to his knees.
You've grown soft, weak. Do you think I can't see it? That pathetic flicker of light within you. That sentimentality for your former master. It clouds your judgment. It makes you ineffective. You will live with your failure. You will clean up this mess you've made. The Hutts, the rebels, the chaos you unleashed. I want it eradicated. And if you won't, I will place Admiral Ozzel in command of your forces. He seems quite eager to assume your position.
Anakin's body stiffens, and Palpatine knows he's hit a sore spot. His troops, Anakin, have spent years winning their loyalty. And while that may have been partly due to his desire to usurp Palpatine, he finds himself loyal to them as well.
You'd send them to die, just to punish me.
I will do whatever I must to ensure loyalty and order. I expect results, or you and your precious 501st will be nothing but dust.
The war against the Hutts is much like that against the Crimson Dawn, brutal and grinding, that leaves Anakin fighting for every inch of ground. The Hutts, seeing what happened to their rivals, unleash their vast resources, calling upon mercenaries, bounty hunters, and even black market droids. Every battle is a desperate struggle as the 501st is diminished and wary. Anakin personally leads his forces, storming desert fortresses and slicing through criminal legions in the industrial wastelands. And while his dark powers allow him to crush the rebels, he is only one person, and he can't offset the power imbalance. Each victory feels like a hollow accomplishment as the 501st's casualties mount and replacements become scarce. Meanwhile, on a distant hidden base, Obi-Wan Kenobi watches the reports of the war between Anakin and the Hutts and knows that his former apprentice is on the verge of collapse. For years, he's waited in the shadows, training Luke and Leia and preparing his forces. But now he can't allow himself to wait anymore. He calls his apprentices forward and tells them to gather his forces. He contacts his old allies, their rebel connections, and the soldiers he's conscripted with the fall of Maul's criminal empire, and gives them orders to strike at this battle. The rebel fleet emerges from hyperspace amidst a fierce battle between Anakin's beleaguered forces and the Hutts. Below, Anakin's forces manage to storm a narcotics factory, but in turn find themselves under siege as the Hutt forces surround them. Starfighters swoop in, harrying the Hutt vessels and cutting through their siege lines. Meanwhile, the rebel starships fill the air, clearing the space for the ground forces to land. Luke and Leia lead the rebel infantry to reinforce the defenses of the 501st. They rally Anakin's exhausted troopers, inspiring them to hold the line. Together they strike back against the Hutt forces, opening a gap in their siege lines. Above the fray, Obi-Wan's flagship engages the Imperial fleet above, knowing that Palpatine is aboard somewhere. But as the tide turns, Obi-Wan takes a shuttle down to pick up Anakin.
Anakin, the battle here is won, but Palpatine will not let this go unanswered. We have the chance to end this now.
Let's go.
He leaps aboard his ship, and Luke and Leia promise to lead the troops. As they depart, Anakin smiles.
You trained them well.
I did, and now they're here to help. I understand your distrust for the Jedi, but that doesn't mean you have to do this on your own. I agreed to help you make things better, and that could include a better Jedi Order.
Anakin glances over the holodisc, watching his kids leading the charge and smiling to himself.
You may be right. It certainly feels like a more pleasant experience than doing this alone. My men are grateful for the help.
Let's not get carried away. We still haven't won this battle. Not so long as Palpatine lives.
From the Grand Bridge, Palpatine overlooks the battle station. Although the enemy ships can't break through and keep their distance, the chaos scatters the Imperial fleet as Ozzel desperately tries to organize his defenses. But Palpatine doesn't focus on them. Instead, he listens to the footsteps behind him.
So, my wayward apprentice survives once again. And as always, your weakness follows you. Foolish boy, do you think you can challenge me? I made you. Everything you are, everything you could have been, is because of me.
Not everything.
With a flick of Palpatine's wrist, the two Imperial guards spring into action, drawing their vibropikes and charging. Anakin ignites his crimson lightsaber, while Obi-Wan's blue blade hums to life beside him. The two Jedi move as one, cutting down the guards with swift, precise strikes. Palpatine watches, unimpressed, before raising his hands. Lightning crackles from his fingertips, arcing across the room toward them. Anakin intercepts this with his blade, the energy crackling as he redirects it. Obi-Wan circles around and tries to rush at him. Palpatine snarls, igniting his blood-red lightsaber, and catches Obi-Wan's lightsaber mid-swing. He splints and tries to strike again, his movements growing faster by the second. Although his speed becomes unnatural, Obi-Wan parries and lets his years of discipline guide his defense, letting him match the Sith Lord's ferocity until Anakin joins forward. Obi-Wan sidesteps, allowing Anakin to lunge at him. His blows are heavy and send the Emperor leaning back, but Palpatine rights his side and unleashes a sweeping strike. Anakin ducks underneath him and stabs low, but Palpatine dances aside. He laughs and unleashes a powerful shriek that freezes Anakin in place, allowing Palpatine to right himself and stab at his heart. Obi-Wan pushes the lightsaber aside and twists to try and elbow him, but the Emperor growls, catching his elbow and shoving him aside. With a snarl, Palpatine lunges at them, his movements becoming unpredictable as he throws a series of savage blows that end with a burst of force energy that throws them to the ground.
You used me. You twisted everything I care about.
And you let me. Because deep down you craved power. You still do.
Not yours.
He swings another blade that sends the walls sparking as he slashes through circuits. Anakin rips up the panel and tries to hurl them towards him, but the Emperor unleashes another burst of lightning that shatters them to rubble. Obi-Wan seizes the moment, using the Force to pull a piece of debris from the shattered bridge and hurl it at the Emperor. Palpatine deflects it with a casual wave, but is momentarily distracted. Anakin surges forward, landing a glancing blow that sears the Emperor's shoulder. Palpatine screams in fury, unleashing a wave of Force lightning that throws both Jedi backward. Obi-Wan looks at the smoking room and then at Anakin, silently nudging his head toward the ruined panels, and Anakin smiles. The two go on opposite sides, coming at Palpatine and forcing him to spin and constantly move to defend from their attacks. The Emperor's strikes grow frantic, his confidence slipping as the two warriors overwhelm him. Anakin springs off the holotable and leaps at him, slashing across the hilt and causing Palpatine to snarl as he prepares to unleash more Force lightning. But Anakin dives out of the way and instead strikes the damaged wall panel, sending a burst of sparks flying that throws Palpatine back. Obi-Wan takes the opportunity to grab one of the exposed wires and rushes forward, driving it into Palpatine's chest. His eyes widen as he screams out and feels the electricity course through him, leaving his body shaking as the power is too much, and he drops to the ground. With Palpatine dead, Anakin rallies what's left of the fleet and organizes them to pick up his troops. Together, they move to Coruscant, where Anakin stakes his claim to the Empire. With the rebels and his troops, his claim cannot be ignored, and he is declared Emperor. Obi-Wan is made to be his chief advisor, and Padme the head of the Senate. His children are given command of the 501st, and together they continue to conclude a peace deal with the Hutts, allowing the Empire to begin redirecting policy. Together, they begin making genuine efforts to improve the lives of people in the Empire. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.